department available, and there's always a few surprises in life. So, I do apologize that we're in any parts nearby. So, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm Judy Hackson, the co-chair of Kensington Fire Safety Council, and this is my partner in crime tonight, Karen Austin, co-chair of the Alvarado Estates Fire Safety Council. Dear Jones of the San Diego Regional Fire Foundation. We're very excited to sponsor this forum, and we're really grateful for the foundation's support of our Fire Safety Council. We could not do with what we do without your donations and the support of Joe and the foundation. Our organizations are the only two fire safety councils in this area. Tonight, we have with us the coordinator of the Fire Safety Council of San Diego County, Morgan Yoli, and she is very interested in helping other groups start fire safety councils because we believe it can make a good difference, and so does the fire department. So I would encourage those of you that are interested in having one in your area, please talk to Morgan. She also has some very good information about home training and free fire assessment. Oh, and we're planning a meeting. She's planning a meeting for people who might be interested, only to learn about how to start a fire council. So we want to extend a special welcome to our co-sponsors, volunteers who help us in community groups. Of course, our communities are beyond grateful to our brave San Diego Fire Festival. We also had many firefighters, of course, on the line. We had Cal Fire helping us. We actually had a total of 18 agencies who answered the call to fight those blazes that we experienced just 3 weeks ago tonight. So we're very happy to have representatives also from the San Diego Police Department, the San Diego City of Office of Emergency Services, and Parks and Rec. We also are very pleased to have our council president, Shawnee Rivera. Thank you very much for coming. Mayor Gloria's office has a representative here, and I think their office also has a representative here. So tonight we're here to learn more about the fire itself, and more importantly, ways we can prepare for future wildfires. So to help us do that, we are really honored to have a new leader of our San Diego Fire Department, Chief Robert Logan, not new to San Diego. He's been here from San Diego, right in Lincoln Park, and been with the department for 24 years, which is great. He knows us and we know him. And he will be up here in just a few minutes. In addition to the presentation, there will be time to answer your questions. So please use the index cards. We will not take questions from the floor. If we don't get to your question, we will try to find the answers, and we'll be posting them on KensingtonFireSafe.org. If you didn't RSVP, leave us your email address and we'll send you a notice of that. If you completed a card or you need a card, raise your hand and our volunteers can find you. Now, yep. After the presentation, we hope to go back out and visit our partners in the foyer for tools like the ember resistant vents. You may have seen that's one of the top strategies that homeowners can take to prepare their homes, harden their homes against embers and wildfires. So we hope you'll take a look at those two booths and all the others that have information about brush management and getting prepared for that and so forth. Those are resources to help you and your neighborhoods become safer when the next fire hits. We all know from our favorite
one of our favorite fire leaders here, that we need to start learning to live with wildfire. Right, Alex? Did I get it? I got that message?
Yeah.
So that's what we're about tonight. We're gonna learn, we're gonna hear what happened in the fire, we're gonna learn what we can do to better prepare, and we're gonna work together after this to make it all happen. Thank you. Now we're
Dan, Eddie, who's going to introduce the fire department staff.
Sorry. All right. So thank you. Good evening. We're excited to be here tonight and do a presentation on what occurred on that fire and also things that you can do to keep yourself safer with our current changing wildland environment. First, I'd like to bring out our Chief Blvd. He's our fire chief of the city of San Diego, and I'm happy that he's here tonight. We'll talk to you guys here for a minute. Chief Blvd.
Well, as you've heard, I'm from San Diego. I grew up directly across the street from Lincoln High School, which is kind of weird that I'm standing on stage at Hoover High School. That's okay. Veteran of the fire department, been with the fire department for 24 years, almost 25 years. I've held every rank except for the position of assistant chief. I worked operations, and I've had several administrative positions that were key within the city and the county for not only our fire department, but other fire departments. But more importantly, because I am from San Diego, born and raised, I have a vested interest in all the communities that I serve. Thank you. Thank you. And as you will see, based on the information that's going to be provided to you tonight from several of my colleagues that I work with, is that the response that we had to the Montezuma fire was truly amazing and remarkable. That situation had gone very different. But not only are people respond with the quickness, but they took a lot of chances to ensure that minimal property damage was impacted. And I'm very proud of my people for doing such a thing. Second, I will say that en route to the fire, my phone is ringing. Guess who it is? It's the president. He wants constant updates. He's telling me, I'll be there as soon as I can to help you and get you whatever resources you need. And that's the type of collaboration you need in this city. And that's why he's been reelected. But more importantly, we attend these type of events because as a fire chief, my direction is that we can't help the communities unless we know what they need. We can't help the communities unless we understand what they want and desire. And once we get those wants and desires, we'll do our best to fulfill them. We can't fulfill everything, but we try to do our best. And based on your input tonight, we will make adjustments within our fire department to try to suit your needs. So I want you to hear from me, because you can assume that I'm a fire chief this way, but I want you to hear from me. I truly and deeply care about the communities in San Diego. This is my home. We will protect my home at all costs. Before I leave, I'm going to do something special for a special guest that we have here tonight.
Yes, thank you, Chief. While they're going down, here in front of the stage, I'd like to welcome Michaela Cajon. She is the region's representative from Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs' office, and she has a certificate that the Congresswoman has prepared to acknowledge one of our most active volunteers. It was originally going to be presented in another situation, but it's been decided that we are going to do it tonight, even though the Congresswoman can't join us. There's a special reason for that. And I will tell you who it is. And Michaela, will you please come and show your certificate? Okay. A lot of our Alvarado Estates residents are here, as well as town of Kensington and elsewhere and so forth. And one of our most cherished is Elaine Boland, just Admiral Boland's widow, and who was one of our significant military leaders. And in her own right, she is a leader. She's been volunteering for more than 40 years with the Armed Services YMCA. Most recently, she was at a groundbreaking with Congresswoman Jacobs and Michaela, and she's still active, as you can imagine, active as ever. And she started more like avant-garde for military wives, and Elaine Boland and her family is here with her today, her daughters. It's their house. It's their house that burned down in the Montezuma fire. And because they declared it a total loss, only 5 days she celebrates her 91st birthday. And sadly, she won't be staying in our neighborhood with us. So we wanted to take the opportunity in front of all of you and with our leaders to commend her and to thank her.
Hi everyone, like Karen said, I'm a community representative in Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs' office. The Congresswoman wasn't able to be here today, but we're super happy and glad to be able to present Elaine with a special congressional recognition on behalf of the Congresswoman in California's 51st district for all the amazing work she's done in the community. Like Karen said, an active volunteer at the YMCA for over 40 years and a very valued member of the community. And we thank you, Elaine, for all that you've done for our community and will continue to do, and a very well-deserved recognition. So thank you.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Evening, everyone. Very happy to be here. My name is Anthony. I'm the Assistant Chief of Operations for San Diego Fire. I work directly underneath Chief Logan, and was at the fire that day. Got there about 7 minutes after it started, 10 minutes after it stared. I was driving up to 15 and I saw it pop up in my queue, and then looked in the back of my rear view and could see the header, as we call it, but smoke coming straight up from it, and realized I should probably turn around on the 15 right now. So tonight, basically, we're going to be doing a two-part presentation. On the first part, I'll be talking about the response itself, what occurred, what we did as the fire department, and working in conjunction with others. The second half of the presentation tonight will be by Assistant Fire Marshal Alex Cajon, down there at the end, and he'll be talking about defensible space and things that you can do. We'll also be talking about what occurred for ignition points on that fire. So. Technical difficulty here. Oh, there it is. All right. So intro, I just introduced myself. I've been with San Diego Fire Department now 25 years. I went on my first ride along when I was 16. My house actually, when I was a kid, burned to the ground. Not a sad, it's okay. Burned to the ground, and it made me really look into the fire service. I started riding along when I was 16 years old, and I've never looked back since then. I currently work as the Assistant Chief of Operations, so that means I oversee the daily operations of the fire department. The city covers from the border to Escondido, across the ocean, and on average, we run about 230,000 calls a year. So we take a call about every 46 seconds at our dispatch center to go to respond. We're going to go over our operations response, like I talked about, the apparatus and partners that came with us, the footprint of what occurred, evacuations. We'll talk about our home ignition zones, a little case study, and then at the end, it looks like we have about 3,000 questions. And we'll try to go through all of those if we can. I promise we're going to try to get to everything we can. So, All right, so on that day, October 31st, right? If you look at it right now, the weather report at 1:35 was 70 degrees, 57% relative humidity, winds were 8 miles per hour, 0 wind gusts, right? Okay, a typical beautiful San Diego day, as we like to say. So if we watch the video here, this is from engine 17 as they were going up the hill on the fire. And you can see the smoke coming through. It's about halfway through the canyon. As they come up here to the second grove, starts rolling through. And then you can see it clearing on the other side where it has not gone through and burned yet. Okay, you'll see them come up the hill here. They pass by engine 26. They're heading actually to the north side because the fire started spotting to the north on us. But I want to show you in that video there, right there, it's going to end here in a second, about 45-second video of how quickly that fire was burning, right? The intensity and the heat behind it. And I want you to think of that, the intensity and heat that was behind it, based on the fact that we had 0 wind gusts, 75 degrees, all right? Simple San Diego day. So crews first arrived on scene. It was engine 17 that arrived on scene. If any of you read the Union Tribune a couple days later, I gave large praise to Captain Dallas Higgins. He works over here at 17s. He's a senior captain on our job. And immediately, he has worked this area, I'd say, 5 or 6 years now in a row. Worked here as a firefighter, worked as an engineer. Now he's a captain in engine 17. He rolled up on scene, found the corner down there at the bottom. And the size up that he gave was engine 17 is on scene at a 3 to 4 acre fire, moderate rate of spread to fast rate of spread, and medium to heavy fuel. I need an immediate fixed wing response. And that was incredibly important because a fixed wing response for us is a CAL FIRE response for them to get them rolling. As you all know, when you're trying to leave San Diego Airport, it doesn't exactly go quickly, right? The same thing with a fixed wing response. They run out, they spool up the engines, they start getting going, and what they get is 1 lead plane, 2 fixed wing plane with them. Right? We're actually getting a C-130 in town this week that will be here permanently moving forward, which will be a great resource for us from CAL FIRE. He asked for a fixed wing response, he asked for a helicopter response. We also asked for 5 strike teams. A strike team for us is 5 engines, like kind. So you can have brush engines, which are your off-road engines that you normally see, or you can have type 1 apparatus. Type 1 are here on the left that you see every day on the streets. No off-road capabilities, they're what you see running around the city of San Diego every day. 2 hand crews. Hand crews are the ones that you see digging the line around the edges of the fires. They're going through it. And then multiple overhead. So overhead for us is op support. We have water tenders. We have specialty apparatus. And then multiple chiefs are going to be responding to it too, to take over divisions and other things, as I'll show as I go forward. The key thing with this is our response times. Captain Higgins did a great job in ensuring that he called that fixed wing right away. For us, it's usually a 15 to 20 minute response before they get overhead. So calling that 15 to 20 minute, somebody's got it going, right? All right, sorry, I heard the phone going there. So 15, 20 minute response, the quicker we can call for that order, the much better it's going to be for all of us, right? And the helicopters. For us, the city of San Diego, we currently have 2 helicopters in the city of San Diego that we use, and then we use our outside resources from CAL FIRE, Sheriff's Department, will come and help us in that response. So we also ask for more helicopters. That's the response units that came, okay? So 350 plus personnel. If you look at the top there, that is all the single engines. If you see where it says an XSD 6430C, and these are all the things that I geek out on, right? Acronyms, terms, whatever. Okay, an XSD 6430C, it looks like 1 unit. That's not, it's a strike team. So that's 5 engines within just that 1 single moniker with a chief bringing them along on that fire. Okay, for us, it's 350 personnel that came like that. That's the beauty of what we have in a mutual aid resource in San Diego. I go across the United States. I work with multiple departments from East Coast, West Coast, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Canada, all over the place. What we have in California, and especially across the entire state with our mutual aid system, is something I don't see anywhere else across the world, basically, too. The fact that we can get resources like this on the scene so quickly is amazing. It's seamless for us. And the reason why is if you look down at the bottom, you see all the different agencies that responded with us, right? San Diego City, CAL FIRE, Miramar, San Miguel, Rancho Santa Fe, Lemon Grove, Spring Valley, Carlsbad. The reason why that's important is because for us, Like I said, we were running 230,000 calls a year. They are also running calls throughout the year. So what we have to do is ensure that all the rest of the cities are taken care of while we're running these calls. And a big thing for us, while I put Spring Valley Fire Response, at that same exact time, Cal Fire and San Miguel had a 40-acre response off the 94 and 125 that they said it had a potential for 500. So at that same time, we had to commit those resources to move them around the region to ensure that everybody else was still getting medical aids, to ensure everybody else in traffic accidents, another brush fire occurs, any of those other things. The mutual aid resources that we have are amazing to work with one another to ensure that we have everything we have. So 350 plus personnel. We also had San Diego PD, SCSU PD, sheriffs, San Diego OES, Red Cross. I give a huge shout out. If there's anybody here from Hardy Elementary, I just say thank you. Huge thank you, because we took over your school in 3 minutes, basically. And we told you, get everyone out right now, right? And you said, here's the parking lot, here's bathrooms, you guys need waters. Hardy Elementary was great to us. And I have to put that out there right now because I didn't get a chance to talk to anyone that night. I went home about 3 in the morning and my eyes were doing a little blink, right? I forgot to say anything to Hardy, but tonight I wanted to call them out for how well they treated us for 2. So if you look through all those units, we have our regular ground resources that we have, and then for our air resources. In the end, we use 2 fixed wing, 4 helicopters, in conjunction with Cal Fire helping us out on that, and that helped us to mitigate that fire and push it back. For a split second at the start, because of later on you'll see in the picture, because of the way that the smoke was rising, we couldn't get fixed wing drops on the south end. We couldn't get it because they're not going to fly through the middle of smoke, right? It's not attainable. So that's where the copters coming in and giving us those low drops and taking care of it, help us out. For us, so this is an image. So when I talk about the resources here in California and what we can do for one another, when there are fires that break in the state of California, whether it be Southern or Northern California, an air resource starts to give us an image of what is on fire, where heat signatures are, where it's going to go. So this is just a couple minutes into the fire. I'd say probably 45 minutes into the fire of the heat signatures as it was running. For us as a fire department, we do things we call it anchor, flank, and pinch. Sounds great, right? Good little term, anchor, flank, and pinch. So what that means is when you look up there and you see that orange area towards the top, my daughter said it's yellow, I think it looks orange, but the orange yellow top, where those two meet, that's where we anchor the fire. We anchor it, we flank it, we try to pinch it at the top, right? So what we'll establish is at the top, that'll be what we call Division Alpha. On the bottom where it's red, that's Division Zulu. So like this, nice big V, right? And then we fill it in with division. So the blue that you see up there on blue triangles, those would be divisions. We call those Division Mike, Division Nancy, Division Tango, all different divisions. And each one of those has a specific duty that they're doing. They have a specific area that they're covering. And so when this fire was going on, we established Alpha and Zulu on either side. My biggest worry when I was on scene that day, of course, was the south side, right? It was pulling south, pushing towards the east, pushing hard towards the east. So the vast majority of our resources were sent to that south side. As we got about 45 minutes into it, if you look at the top of the screen, what do we got at the top of the screen? Nice little dots rolling there, right? Ember casting started throwing it to that north side. And when I go back and say that, I say when I say 0 gusts of wind, 3 to 7 miles an hour. Okay, when I was on the Cedar Fire, when I came on the job a couple of years into it, there's ember casting going 2 miles because of the wind behind, right? We were lucky on this, that the ember casting that we had pushed it to that north side for us. We started to see the smoke pattern changing to the north and started seeing fine conditions on the north and started sending engine back up. That video that you saw earlier was engine 17 coming up there, and they were heading to the north side to start taking. But the vast majority of Division Mike, Division Bravo, all in between there, those were homes. We were trying to put everything we could on a home. And I'll give huge credit to the firefighters who were on that front. They took a beating when they were up there on the hill. There was a lot of heat coming their way. But I will tell you, from being a 25-year firefighter and working my way through the ranks, it's my favorite thing in the world. I'm not gonna lie. It is why we're here. I came here to help people, support people, and make your life better, right? And all firefighters out there, that's what we're out there for. So the firefighters that were there did the same exact thing. So we established our flanks, started anchoring and pinching it and trying to push it forward. Crews did a great job in holding it back on the houses. I'll be honest with you, when I pulled up on scene, I had about 9 units on scene when I first got on scene. I expected us to lose 15 to 20 homes. I did. I expected it with the conditions that I had in the canyon and the draw that it was making. I expected us to lose homes. I wasn't happy about it, I'll tell you that much. But in my history of being in this department, that's what I expected I saw. But the crews did a phenomenal job to get ahead of it. So evacuations, I'm going to cover this real quick, but San Diego PD is here too, and so I'm sure there will be questions on here, and we'll answer those questions for you. But what I want to talk about is the fact that we've changed the way that we did evacuations in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, if you look on the left, we have the old way of doing it. We would take a huge block, and we would say 6301 Alpha, get it out. 6301 Bravo, tell them they need to get out, right? But we might only need this little tiny chunk from what was there, telling people that they need to leave their home. On the right, you have what's called the Genesis program. What was used that day is we're trying to do it. If you look at it, it follows the contours of the streets. We worked 2.5 years throughout the state of California to set this system up so we can specifically take out areas that are going to help with ingress and egress. And I know there was a lot of issues with trying to get out of the neighborhoods and in between. We'll talk about that. But one of the main things that I can say moving forward for us is that the system we're using now is far and ahead better than we did before. Other things that you have are WIA alerts that go out there to you, to go to your phones. You might be in that closest area. Genesis itself, evac, has its own app that you can use too to see what's going on in your zone. Social media, to be honest, I don't have social media. My daughter does, she has tons of it. But I don't have social media, but there is social media platforms that you can look for us, Alert San Diego. And more than anything else is boots on the ground. And I say that because as much as you're getting that alert or anything else, San Diego PD was doing a phenomenal job of trying to get out there and tell people to get out. They're using, if you listen for a high-low siren means it is time to go. Okay, that's one of the things. They're in there trying to knock on doors, ensuring that everybody's getting out of their houses. Because we never know whether you have your cell phone with you, whether you even have a cell phone, and you're even getting that alert. So, and the overhead announcements that are occurring. So we'll cover that later. So in the end, if you look at the picture on the left, that was a picture taken from Coronado at the inception of the fire. Okay? So what it does is it hits the inversion layer. You see how the cloud is flattening out, and then it pops through. That means there's huge heat behind that fire. There's a lot of energy that is pushing that fire forward. And I can tell you from looking at the picture on the left, comparative to the picture on the right. The picture on the right is what was actually burned. Okay, so it's roughly 39, I'm going to say 40, it's easier to say. Roughly 39 acres to 40 acres that were taken out on that side. But if you look at the picture on the left, comparative to what we actually lost, we lost dirt, right? We did lose a home, and I'm sorry for that. Okay, I never want to lose a house, ever want to lose a house. But if you look at what we lost that middle part of the dirt, and I'm happy that everyone is here today. One, to learn about what occurred so we can tell you what occurred, but also to learn what to do in the future so we can be better as a community, to be safer, and ensure that we're moving forward. I'm done with my side. I'm going to bring up Assistant Fire Marshal Alex Kane. He's going to talk about a number of items right now.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to reintroduce myself. My name is Alex Cajon. I'm one of the 2 assistant fire marshals for the San Diego Fire Rescue Department. Before I get into my conversation, I want to give a little background of me. I've been in fire service since the age of 18. I was a student firefighter, a reserve firefighter, and I got hired at San Diego Fire Department. I spent most of my time serving the Mesa up here, Hillcrest, North Park. I lived by San Diego State for 10 years. So like Chief Logan was saying earlier, this matters to me, as does to all my colleagues. I spent 23 years working the fire engines. I've been to multiple brush fires, these types of fires. And now I have a different job. My job is to get out in front of these fires, to meet you all, give you the perspective from a firefighter that has experience doing the firefight, and then show you the ways and help you find the ways to to give us a fighting chance to make your home as fire hardened as possible. So today we're gonna take an opportunity to do some fire prevention work. Along with that, we're gonna review what happened at that fire. There's a couple of things that Chief Eddie brought up that I want you to remember. We're gonna walk through this together. I'm gonna tell you a story. One of the first things you gotta remember is that we're talking about perfect San Diego weather when this happened, okay? I'm gonna bring it up a couple times, because I want you to remember that. The second thing that we're gonna talk about is that right when engine 17 is the key component to the story I'm gonna tell you tonight. But they were the first ones at scene, and they were the first people to get water on the house that was lost. The reason why that's important, because that house was on fire within moments of their arrival, and they diverted up the hill. We'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. The third thing I want to talk to you about was they ordered fixed wing support. That's the airplane that comes over and drops fire retardant. That airplane drops fire retardant from the sky. As we start talking about the case study, you're gonna realize that that would have done nothing to this home. So that being said, if you go to the next slide, please. Okay, before we kind of get to the case, I want to talk about the disaster sequence. This was a matrix that Dr. Jack Cohen came. He passed away, but he was a fantastic contributor to education regarding wildfire. His biggest concern was what happens with big fires? Why do we lose so many homes? What happens to the fire resources? And if we look up here, I want to explain it to you. We're going to look at there's two parts. There's conditions, and then there's the consequences of the condition. So at the top, we talk about severe wildfire potential, extreme fuels, weather, topography. Living in San Diego, we are constantly living in this state. Once again, it was perfect San Diego weather, and that fire started and blew up within a matter of minutes. Engine 17 was at scene quickly, and it was already spotting over. So we are constantly living in this type of situation. Giving emissions, regardless of how it starts. We have extreme burning conditions, high intensity and growth rates. That fire that you just saw that Chief Eddie was explaining, it blew up. Afterwards, it blew up means it's growing extremely fast. We're living with lots of fuels in our canyons. Our department does a great job of putting fires out, but the dead and dying fuels remain. So it's building up. We have wood piles building up. And then once it gets into the home, like it did, the potential from home to home transition is very high, especially when you start adding wind to the condition, lower relative humidities, and higher temperatures. Down here, the consequences. This is really important because I know a lot of people are asking questions like, what was the fire department's response? How did the evacuation work? Just keep in mind when these Indian companies show up, they quickly become overwhelmed because this fire is moving so fast. They're trying to get a handle on it and figure out, okay, what is the plan? Let's create a box. Let's keep the fire within that box. And it's continually moving. I've been on fires where we pull up, we deploy hose lines, and before we actually put water on the fire, we're like, guys, pick it up. We're going to drive up a block and then we're going to go one more block and then deploy there because the fire is gone already. And then we're talking about ember cast. Ember cast is about 2 miles, like Chief Eddie was saying. The effectiveness of the first two firefighters is reduced tremendously. Their concern is for life and safety. So it's really hard to determine, hey, how are we going to start putting water on this fire when it's going toward the homes? So they're going to be diverted to those homes to try to evacuate and notify. It shows that the effectiveness is reduced or even non-existent during these moments. This was the day that was perfect weather. How would this fire be different if it was 20 mile an hour gusts, a 35 mile an hour sustained wind, Santa Ana, very common conditions that we live with here, right? And then once it gets into the homes, it has not much to do regarding how much brush we have around because a home is a fuel. Once it's on fire, it's all about separation distances. Like I said, I used to live over by San Diego State. My neighbor, I could talk to him from my window. Some of these houses are there is more separation, but once we get into neighborhoods, it's very close. Within 10 feet, structure transmission is extremely high. Now that we know what we just talked about, what can we do to give the firefighters a fighting chance so they're not fighting our house fire, they're fighting the wildfire that's threatening the neighborhoods? Next slide, please. So the best method or the best tactic that we can do as homeowners is to harden our home and ensure that we have defensible space around our home. We've in the past, we've talked about defensible space in regards to brush, but I want to talk about defensible space in regards to combustibles within 0 to 5 feet from our house. What we have here is a schematic and what it looks like. We have zone, they call it zone 0. Like, so what we need to do within the fire service, this is a new concept, relatively new over the years. We're still using different terms. We're getting better at that. So we're calling it zone 0, the home ignition zone. And essentially we want to remove all the combustibles from that zone. When we do the case studies, I'm going to show you how the zone 0 and having combustibles in the zone 0 made that home extremely vulnerable to embers. We're going to have more, also so don't forget, we're going to have more information at the tables out there regarding this and pamphlets, and we can discuss this if you'd like regarding your home. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to get into the case study and how this home was affected by the Montezuma fire, the sequence of events that occurred, and what the firefighters did. So the home is located at the top of the valley off of Montezuma Road. It's facing the south, and what we know is that when you're facing the south, it's a drier, more the sun is affecting the slope more often with lighter, flashier fuels that have lower dead fuel moistures, meaning that they're more ignitable, and when they burn rapidly. The home that we're studying today, the home ignition zone contains combustible materials around the 0 to 5 feet. Now, I'll be honest with you, I teach this stuff. My home also has combustible materials between 0 to 5 feet. So, hey, here's the thing. And this is if I come out and I come to your house and we're talking, I would love to inform you from a fire prevention perspective. We're just looking for progress. We're not looking for perfection. Any little bit helps that those first responders, it buys you time so we can get to your house before it's already within the house. Once again, perfect weather. That means that this type of fire can happen any given day. This is probably the best situation possible to have this type of fire. So we had any wind, any more wind, like Chief Eddie was saying, dozens of homes could have been lost. Next slide, please. So my job was to go out and see how the fire affected the community. And one of the things that I discovered was that there was a home that was damaged, but potentially lost. I went into the home and I conducted a damage assessment on the home. Essentially what I do is I walk around the house, I look for different factors, I look for signs of fire, and as I approached the house, I started walking, and I said it's on the delta side. Let me explain what that means. When you go to a house and you look at the front, it's the alpha side, that's how we call it. You just clockwise you go around. Bravo, Charlie's in the rear, delta is to the right of the home. As we're walking down towards the delta side, I see a couple of things that are of interest to me. I see that there is debris left from the fire located there. It's kind of pixelated at my place. You see a pretty good view. Can you guys see out there? Okay, perfect. What I noticed that was significant is come into this picture. You have the white demarcation on the siding of the home. That indicates to me that there was a high intensity fire that was burning cleanly, but that means they had all the right conditions. They had fuel, heat, and oxygen. Above it, you see the demarcation of soot. I look over to the right, you have some wood siding that has charring. And then you have like a planter table located there that had deep charring. The deep charring is actually underneath the table, and that's significant. These materials, combustible materials, we call that a receptive fuel bed. And what is it receptive of? It's receptive for these low intensity fires that fly through the air and they land there. Undetectable for most people, but they're just smoldering against the house or on these combustible piles, and then fire starts. Fire started in this collection of combustible material here, and then it started spreading towards this table. You can tell by the charring beneath the table. So let's go again. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to show you the different angles from this pile, this debris pile. Now I'm on the Charlie side, I'm looking back towards it. The ignition source is that arrow going down, that was the same area, but it leads to underneath the deck. So they had a beautiful deck that looked at the canyon. And what I noticed was the charring, if you look at this beam that's going across, the deeper, they call it alligatoring. That's signs of heavy intense fire. And here's the things that I've learned from this view. We did have a wind of 8 miles per hour. It was coming out of the northwest and it was feeding through Montezuma. As it approached the home, whenever we have like a choke point, or we have a thing called the Venturi effect, where it actually accelerates the wind. We had the debris pile burning underneath the deck. The wind comes to the deck, it actually speeds up the process. It's like a bellows, it's blowing air on this fire. And then now this fire is burning freely underneath this deck. When I said, remember about how the first fire engine company requested fixed aircraft, they jumped from the top. They have a deck that was free burning fire, it's not effective. This house was extremely vulnerable. But a lot of our houses, if not all of our houses, are extremely vulnerable. But there are certain things out there that we can do that are low cost, high impact things to buy the firefighters time. Because if the firefighters have 1 gallon of water to put on that low intensity fire that was right up against your house, they could have extinguished that fire. So let me talk a little bit more about this. When we look at the deck, there's some insulation on the ground. This insulation was insulating the interior of the home that was the dwelling part of the house. And the insulation actually was shielding the floor panels. You can see that by the different colors in the demarcation and the chart. That's important because one of the things that we would come out there to evaluate this home is like, you need to get 1 hour sheeting underneath your deck. That would make a big difference with how this fire spread. Next one, please. This, as we progress down the deck, I'm coming along, just like if it was this deck, I'm starting here. And by the time we got to right about the middle of the deck, we started to see that the deck became an exterior access area. So there was no need for insulation. So there was no shielding. The deck joints are now much closer together. Like I said, it was already like a blowtorch effect. And once it got to this section of the deck, it was free burning, it had plenty of combustibles, it had plenty of fuel, and the fuel was all tightly next to each other. When fuels are tight next to each other, it's called agglomeration, and what that means is that the intensity increases significantly. When you have two fences, I'm sure some of you share a fence with a neighbor, and you want to have the beautiful side of your side, and they want to have the beautiful side of their side. You have two decks really close to each other. Those are going to burn a lot hotter than in one single deck. one single fence. Something to consider. Once we got down to here, we noticed the penetration into the home. This penetration was through the exterior portion of the deck, the one that has the arrow, but right behind it was the first penetration into the living space. One of the things I also want to say was there was no detectable tree litter. And when I say tree litter, I'm talking about tree leaves and pine needles and those various types of things. There was no detectable tree litter underneath the home. It was clean there. You can tell by I was looking around at the soils. That's a good indicator of validating our assessment of the home. Next. So this is right behind that first penetration. And once again, we have the fire had burned through the flooring because it was not insulated, it wasn't shielded, and it entered the home. Once again, the Venturi effect and fire dynamics. Fire wants to go up and it wants to go out. It's already going at a fast rate, it's already like a blowtorch. And then now it penetrates the house. Now the fire is racing through the home. The firefighters were reporting extreme fire growth at that fire. Like I said, when we looked at that video, they were at that house within 15 minutes and they were in a serious firefight. And the one thing I want to actually say when we came up here, you guys stood up and clapped for our efforts. I'm going to go back and share that with the captain and the crew of Engine 17. With no doubt, the actions that they took that day say, who here lives in Alvarado Estates? Okay, I'll tell you what, if Engine 17 didn't do what they did, the chance of structure or structure transmission is very, very likely, very high. Those firefighters, and I'll move on after this, but I just think it's something to talk about. Normally, when we go to a structure fire, we'll go through one bottle. Now, our bottle's 45 minutes, and that's activity that's working really hard. By the time you're done, you're pretty much very tired, and you call it you're gassed. Well, the Agent 17 crews went through 4 bottles, 4 people before they really had to support. And they fought that fire and they kept that fire contained to the house. So that was an awesome thing. I appreciate you standing up. I'm gonna let Captain Higgins know too. Once it made an entry into the home, the effects of the fire now became like an incinerator. When I walked through the home and I looked at it, actually penetrated the house 3 times. It was the effects of the interior contents was that of melting effects. Not common in structure fires. There's plenty of structure fires. I know if we get some of that, we get a lot of that, but this was a different level. The reason why I bring it up is because this house was vulnerable, just like many houses, like my house is vulnerable, your house is probably vulnerable. This house was almost lost before the firefighters could do anything about it. If there's something that we can do is if we can clear that 0 to 5 feet and give those firefighters a chance, trust me, they will do whatever it takes to put water on that fire and get your house and save your house. But we got to give them a fighting chance to do that. So what can we do? There are some things that we can do. For example, the vent screens. This is on the Delta side also. When I came across my first, idea that how this fire spread was through the vents. I went up to the vent and I ran my hand across the screen, and the screen was just cluttered with embers. The embers were extinguished. It was after the fire, of course. And I felt the size of the mesh. The mesh was beneath 1/8 of an inch. That is what we're recommending. It did its job. The fire did not enter the home through the vent. For me, it was validation of what we're seeing out there. Hey, you know what? Get your vents checked. Change your vents. It works. It worked on this house. The reason why this house had fire in it was from underneath the depth. Another example of how home hardening works. We have non-combustible siding in this picture, and we have dual glazed, dual pane windows also. You would think that the windows are a weak point. So would I. But when I looked inside the home and I looked at this area, there was no fire penetration on that side. Keep in mind that we have that white demarcation there. That's that sign of high intense fire. The stucco and the dual glazed windows kept the fire from entering your home. It bought the firefighters time. It was the vulnerability beneath the deck. It was the accumulation of material in the home ignition zone. That was the main cause of loss. Another thing I noticed in this picture, if you look on that chimney of that brick, you have all that phosgene. They tried to drop on that house. They dropped the fire retardant in that house. It was unsuccessful. This is a lot of the stuff I just talked about. I'm not going to go back over that, but there are some things over here. When we start thinking about hardening our home, this isn't a community approach. We can't look at it as like, hey, my parcel is have defensible space and it's hardened, but yet my neighbor over here is not. That's not going to do much for you. So I'm really excited to see the people here. I'm excited about the fire safety councils. They're doing the right thing. We're educating people. And it's a community approach as opposed to parcel centric. We're looking at these low cost, high impact things. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to work towards that. It can take a long time, but we can show you what the lowest cost, high impact things that you can do to protect your home. And as I said before, when we think about home hardening in defensible space, you got to look at it as dials. You may not have as much defensible space, so you might have to turn the home hardening dial up. Your home hardening dial may be kind of in the middle with your defensible space turned up. These are hard concepts to understand. The San Diego Fire Department and the the county are here to help you with these home assessments. I'll talk a little bit about the home assessments and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so we were out in North Park, South Park area, and we were training up firefighters. We just trained up, we have probably about 60 firefighters on staff that have the knowledge and the training, the experience to conduct these home condition zone defensible space inspections. It's our job to come out and, you know, we can come out and look at things and say, hey, this paper up against your house is not a good idea. When it gets an ember, it can burn up, and then it goes into your vents. We have the experience to kind of forecast what would happen with these types of things. We could tell you, hey, most likely because of where you're located on the canyon, fire will come up this way due to the normal air, you know, wind patterns within San Diego. Let's really focus on this corner of your house. But those are things that we offer, and the fire marshal and the fire chief want to encourage fire safety councils. And the San Diego Fire Rescue Department is willing to go out, meet the fire safety councils, and conduct these home condition zone inspections free of charge. So we really want to encourage the community coming together and creating these councils, start to speak the same language, start to understand what the real problems are, and make changes in a community sense. Okay. That's more information we'll have at the table. I'll be around once again. I'll say thank you very much for making the effort of coming out tonight. And let's go on to the questions.
I think the fire marshal and really appreciate all the detail you went into. I have one question before we get to the questions. My question. Is there a representative from SDSU here? We didn't get a confirmation, so because we have a lot of questions for SDSU, but we'll address those later. And secondly, you've met Fire Marshal Kane and Council President Shawnee Rivera. Will our other guests at the podium just pass the mic down and introduce yourself, your organization, and your role with the organization?
Good evening. I'm Daniel Hypes, and the other assistant fire marshal for San Diego Fire Rescue. Oversee a couple different wildland management and enforcement, which is why I'm here tonight. Nice to meet you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lieutenant Chris Sharp from San Diego PD. I'm in charge of emergency planning, and so our job is to coordinate training officers to work in conjunction with the workers in the San Diego Fire Department. And we also will be responding to most major incidents to help with the command post and help coordinate the efforts of our officers when it comes to fighting the fires and then on the direction of the fire department regarding evacuation traffic and whatnot.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Erica Pereira. I'm the Deputy Director of the Parks and Recreation Department's Open Space Division. Specifically, I oversee our brush management program here in the city of San Diego, as well as about half of our park ranger program that works within our open space. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Erica Weichel. I'm the Senior Park Ranger for Open Space K-Use Division, which includes the areas of Talmadge and Kensington and the college area.
The first thing that we want to acknowledge is that thanks to one of our volunteers, this meeting has been zoomed so that people who are out of town or otherwise weren't able to join us in person could also take part and benefit from the conversation. And so they've asked several questions in that chat mode, and we have put them into these piles, and we'll answer them as we move forward to the questions. Thanks to the people on Zoom.
Okay, first question. How did this wildfire start? If you don't know, when will you know?
I gotta pull back up here. All right. Currently, right now, the fire itself is being investigated by MAST. It's an open investigation. One of the things that was asked me about the fire itself and how did it start and the rest that's going along with it. These are incredibly hard for us to diagnose we know the origin where it started. That first actual picture that I had was taken by a civilian driving by in a car when it first started. So we know the origin where it's at. And I want you to think about something right now. The fact of us trying to investigate how it occurred. There's probably about 20,000 gallons of water dumped in that corner of everything that where it started. So for us to see if there's an accelerant or anything else, most things are washed down. So our mass department right now is going through, looking at witnesses, looking at videos and everything else, and the case is still open, trying to figure out where it started. I wish I could tell you something, but as of now, we do not have a cause for the fire.
Okay, second question, could you try not to write a paragraph with your questions? Thomas and Kensington residents who live southwest of the fire were told to evacuate to Allied Gardens, which is northeast of the fire. Why, and when did it make more sense to evacuate people away from the fire, further south or west, rather than toward the fire? Who?
Part of the evacuation process is really directed by city to PD in conjunction with fire. We'll get the direction from the ISA community that I see for fire about where this fire is going and where the closest, we call it the TEP, the temporary evacuation point. Obviously, when we send out the evacuation notices, whether it comes over your phone or whether it's via PA or the police officer knocking door to door, we'll say evacuate, it's free to go. So we look for some place that might have facilities that are readily available, parking space and whatnot. The closest that we could determine that was going to be at least not in the path of a fire, that we thought was going to be Allied Garden spread. And so it was close enough where it had the facilities that we could quickly go to. That's not to say if this thing got out of control that it would move, then we would move the TEP again. But for the most part, especially with the freeway there, we were pretty confident that we could contain the fire in that immediate area and it would not go through San State area and whatnot. So that's why we picked that particular location.
Thank you. What additional safety, fire, and traffic resources will be allocated in the college area to accommodate the thousands of additional dorm and multifamily units planned for development? I think so.
The answer question is regarding the density and traffic control for population that's going to be increasing because of density. Is that?
That's basically it. We're
Okay.
all worried about added density.
I can tell you, considering you have the traffic engineering issues that they look at density, right? They do studies and whatnot. I can't speak to what they approve when it comes to building permits and whatnot. I can just tell you from our perspective, it's constant traffic engineering that looks at the traffic flow. That's why you'll see the markers that go across the roads that will calculate the amount of cars and density during days, times, and directions. That's one they can see from our.
Thank you for that. So I think one of the important lessons of tonight is the importance of coordination and collaboration. So there are a multitude of folks who are involved in any sort of decision and planning. So understanding correctly, STPD is looking at estimates for growth and the traffic patterns. Fires obviously keeping tabs on this. The departments will then make budget requests that we trust are meant to accommodate the needs that they see from their vantage point in that department. The mayor then proposes a budget, and then the council approves or makes modifications to that budget. So that question involves many decision points along the way, and is including how many resources we have to work with. But at the very beginning of that is an assessment of need from each of the departments that are represented up here and others as well. So as much as we would like simple answers to every question that's proposed or will be asked tonight, oftentimes, as you've already heard, there aren't necessarily simple answers. So what I can tell you is this: we are keeping tabs on growth. We are planning for that growth. And we are being very careful to respond to the needs that are raised by our department leaders to do the best that we can to meet the needs of the communities in our district and across the state. Folks, I'm happy to be up here, happy to be in the fire. but I'm also gonna say this. There are experts up here to respond to very specific questions about fire, emergency response, and planning. And I think that the best use of this time would be to tap into those experts. I'm your city council member. I have decisions to make with respect to policy and budget. And we've gone back and forth in a number of different forums about those policy decisions. We just had a campaign, an election. I don't think that this is going to be the best use of that time to try to relitigate all of that. What I encourage you to do. That's fine.
15 minutes left, so please address your questions directly to the councilman on your own, because we'd like to get to some other questions.
Folks, you have high-level leadership here from multiple departments, and I strongly encourage you to make use of the expertise that you have up here. I will answer the questions that they cannot answer, or that I have a role to play in. But I'm not going to relitigate policy decisions that have already been made. There are different opportunities and forums for that.
Okay, this is a question for the open space folks. Evidently, to learn to live with wildfire, how can we channel cross-sector funding towards minimizing the highest risk invasive species while regenerating resilient native ecosystems? I think I got that right. You want to see that?
Wow, question.
Yes, I'll read it again. Basically, the question is, how can we minimize the highest risk invasive species, most flammable species that are growing in our canyons while keeping our resilient native species growing?
So I think we have many opportunities throughout our open space, working with our park rangers and volunteer groups and nonprofits throughout all our canyons and park areas. We offer volunteer, I know Erica does quite frequently, volunteer opportunities to do invasive removal within our parks and open spaces and restoration projects. So there is funding issues associated with that, but that's where our wonderful volunteers come in handy. I would certainly, we can direct you to our volunteer groups for that. But it is it's a little bit at a time that we try to get to. I hope that answered the question. There are opportunities.
All right, this question is about disclosures when you sell a house. This question is about when you sell a property and you have to have an inspection. It appears that people are sometimes ignoring what they need to do. How are those inspections and orders to clean things up being enforced?
So I think that question is referring to the Assembly Bill 38 inspection. So when there's a real estate transaction, you have to provide proof of a defensible space inspection showing that your property meets all of the requirements within 6 months of that transaction. So we currently conduct those. You can request an AB 38 inspection on our website. And basically what we're doing is that we go out and we make sure that you're complying with the minimum defensible space laws. As Assistant Fire Marshal Keane said, there's a lot of things that you can do that are going to make your home safer. A lot of those right now are, recommendations, things you can do. There is no requirement to meet current building standards if your home was built before 2007. So there's, but all that we're looking for in that inspection is that you are maintaining the minimum defensible space that you have to have. And then we will provide a report saying that you're in compliance with our local municipal code and state laws. And that's what we're looking for. Did that answer the question?
Thank you. Here's a question. It says, what steps are being taken to ensure the ability of Alvarado estates to evacuate, given there is only one point of ingress and egress? And I might add that in each of our communities present today, Talmadge, Kensington, El Cerrito, and Alvarado estates, and also College View estates, there are pockets within the neighborhood where more than 30 houses only have one point of exit And those are some of our higher risk areas, especially along the canyon rims, and the question is, are there special things that might happen to better ensure the safety of those residents?
First of all, I used to live in Alvarado States, by the way. My family's up there, so I'm quite familiar with the area over there, and that's when clouds lived up there. And I do understand that there's one way in and one way out. I am not aware of any projects or plans that someone else speak regarding the entrance, other than the one of these guys zooming through the gate between the front. The gate was not there when I lived there. There is that side street that goes up to that way through San Diego State, so it's a secondary, but you have to go through the main drive that goes down the Montezuma. So I don't know, people that live in that neighborhood, I think you'd have to find some way to go down the freeway from the backside and see if it would be viable.
That's an issue.
I'll just really quickly add to that. It's a question that we continue to pose, to look for creative opportunities to produce alternatives. I talked to Chief Stoll when he was in that position, prior to Chief Logan. Chief Logan and I have talked about it already. It's an ongoing conversation. Well, again, one of those things that seems much more complicated than me as a layman or others who don't have experience in emergency planning and evacuation might think. Because what I think is, can we create a path that folks can use in an emergency, and they immediately identify multiple reasons why that simple fix could actually create more danger than actual safety. So know that it is an ongoing conversation, something that I can push for, but we don't want to do is create any situation where folks believe that there is false safety. That's the worst thing that we can do. And that is why the conversation seems to be far more complicated than I initially thought it would.
Thank you. We're gonna move on. This is a question our fire safety councils have gotten over and over, and I'm afraid there isn't a great answer. But the question is, why are the palms allowed to get so overgrown in the first place in so many canyons? I know it's a tough one.
The question was the palms.
I'm gonna hop in here real quick. It's all good. I'm gonna hop in real quick on a lot of things on when there is overgrowth. A lot of that is private property. I'll tell you right now, a lot of it is private property, and it's harder for us to enforce. I'll let myself more here in a minute. But I get this question asked a lot when I'm cruising around or around the community. It's always, why don't you clear that lot? I can't clear that lot. It's privately owned. Most of the area and acreage that burned that we had on this fire was privately owned. It wasn't the city of San Diego, it's privately owned. And so for us to go in there and clear that property out, would you like us to come in and knock down all your trees in your backyard? We can't. There's a process that we have to take. And Fire Marshal Heights can talk about it, but for us, on those things, when I see most land, believe me, I've been in this community, I've been around here for 25 years working in this community, and if someone asks me something, I'll look it up, but if it's private property, we cannot touch that on that private property. But you got anything?
Yeah, I'll just say that, because we have received complaints out there, there's a lot of areas that are overgrown. Our scope of what we look at is that 100 feet of defensible space from a home. So there's a lot of areas that have a lot of growth. There's fuels in the canyons. We're aware of that. Part of that is, like Chief Eddie is saying, it's someone's private property, it's their parcel. What we want to make sure is, if any part of that is within 100 feet of a home and we get a complaint, we can try to force or do an abatement on that property. If that homeowner is not willing to do it themselves, we can abate it. But again, our scope and the laws that we enforce are 100 feet. So when you're down at the bottom of a canyon, there's no structures, we don't really have that authority to abate something if it's not within that defensible space area.
So in open space areas, we have and work with great nonprofit partners that have absolutely done palm removals for us. Unfortunately, not in this particular area because said it's private property, but across the road in Rockland Canyon, just 2 years ago, there's a helicopter palm removal. that they, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number of the ponds, it was like 200, it was a tremendous amount. So we've done that several times, at least in the last 5 years throughout the city of San Diego. Again, it takes collaboration with our nonprofit partners, who go and get grants to do this type of work. So we're very blessed to work with them. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do smaller projects, and then there's restoration that has to come behind that, because of the environmental impacts that are left behind. So please know that we do that. It's not on the grand scale that we would like to see it, but we continue to actively find grants internally, but also work with our nonprofits, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Can you just give us a ballpark figure of how much that cost? Because I remember that removal was really expensive. It's like a couple million or something.
I know, I do know somebody who knows this answer. I believe the last pond lift we did was $2 million. He's shaking his head. It was between $1 and $2 million over the course of 2 days. Helicopters are very expensive.
Go ahead, I guess.
All right, thank you. Some of you were asking earlier about how to be involved with restoration, and that's something that is one of my favorite things about my job, is going in and restoring the canyons, the invasives, and coming back and fighting native plants. A perfect way to do that is with community involvement. You know, these open spaces were saved because community members spoke up into the undeveloped. So we need that same kind of community participation to restore these canyons. And, you know, picking and choosing where we do restoration is also based on accessibility. Accessibility for volunteers, for work crews to be able to get there, for us to get to be able to show watering and waterways as well. But we do have a website where you can reach us, and it's Canyons Volunteer at sandiego.gov. We'll be happy to include you all in the my volunteer restoration events.
I would add that there's some canyons that have very active volunteer canyon societies, and they really make a difference in taking care of their canyons. Mission Hills, I think, is one, and so if citizens will volunteer, sometimes there's matching resources, but if citizens don't step up, sometimes there isn't. The next question is another difficult one. I'm going to put you guys on firing on here. Is there a plan to work toward ensuring that encampments do not come back and cause fires?
Please, sir.
I can only speak for San Diego PD when it comes to our response to complaints regarding canyons and canyons and whatnot. We do have that get it done app. Obviously, the division that you live in, whether it's Eastern Division or if it's South Montezuma and it's City Division, you can always call the divisions and file a complaint. And we do have our native listening teams. That's their sole job, is to go out and deal with the quality of life issues. We'll go in and evaluate whether we're going to camps or not. There is a process that we have to do before we remove camps, and it's got to do with legal notification and whatnot before we can go in and scoop out the camps. But we can only do, you know, enforcement when someone actually files the complaint, and then we can take action. And I can only speak from our experience that you have to call, and it may not be done right away. But when you do file a complaint, especially multiple complaints, that gives us the ability when they're actually move people out of the camp. Hopefully that will happen.
Can I chime in real quick? Who here has actually used the Get It Done app? That's fantastic. That's great, because those, we get those complaints. And when we start seeing complaints that are, you know, the same thing over and over again, it prioritizes it. So if you see these homeless encampments, submit and Get It Done. You see these issues around your neighborhoods, submit and Get It Done. Just keep doing it. Organize, keep doing it.
I have a really great question. This is regards to our wonderful elementary school. party. And, I'd like to acknowledge that the principal of the school is here with us tonight as our several. They did an incredible job to evacuate the whole elementary school and staff. And they actually took the children safely at the back of the school and up the hillside and convened at the Viejas Arena. And while everybody was safe, and that's top priority, there are some questions, and here's one of them. Was this considered a successful traffic evacuation? As a parent, we could not get to our children for hours. No visible traffic police and Montezuma and College, and the light was blinking. So, you know, what steps can be taken, you know, to help to ensure that in the future, the evacuation of the local school and the co-location with a major university and all of the neighborhoods is successful and safe.
Okay. Regarding traffic control, so there was multiple issues that we had to deal with. One is obviously fire itself and trying to get the monster shut down so we could get only fire apparatus up there. What that did was that caused obviously the traffic congestion from Fairmont, Colwood, Upland Boulevard, College, Montezuma, College Avenue, all the way down to 8 and 8 itself. So we were inundated. We had trying to get police officers in the area. I think we had, about high point we had over 80. Trying to deal with getting enough evacuation teams because we all know Colwood is very dense when it comes to the apartment complex, Colwood Way, and then Alvarado Estates. We had San Diego State Police assisting us. We had La Mesa Police assisting us, and we had CHP. La Mesa was taking over control at Montezuma College, and we had officers at Alvarado College, all along Montezuma, Fairmont, and whatnot. The congestion was an issue. And I will tell you that unfortunately, another wrench got thrown in there was in the active shooting call that happened at San Diego State. And that threw a wrench in. It was almost like a lieutenant's test for San Diego PD where you just keep throwing engines in. And we're going to talk something else about that. I'm not trying to make light of it. I just want you to be aware that now we're trying to do 2 major incidents. We have a fire and evacuation that are continuing. We have traffic control. We have kids that are being moved onto the campus that now is going under lockdown. We have a victim and patient care, gunshot victim, and now we have another person possibly around the campus armed with a handgun on Halloween night.
That's
So
scary.
So I'm not making light of the fire. I'm just saying we had some juggling as a single police department to do that. And there was a lot of movement. Officers that went to the fire, they got pulled over to San Diego State, but then got pulled over to traffic control, that then got pulled over back over to San Diego State. We dealt with helping with evacuation of the children. We wanted to get them out of the fire, but unfortunately now they're into a lockdown zone over at the arena. Most of the time, we look at elementary schools, hospitals as a defensible space, right? Rather than evacuate, we'll just go ahead and have the fire department assist us with hardening that target and then keeping everybody in place because there's already built-in defensible space. And then we also don't have traffic going back and forth. The parents pick up the kids, and now they're inserted in the middle of the problem. It was unique because we had the fire and then everything else going on. And there's really no good way to get your kids, to be honest with you. I think it was in the principal or somebody can speak up. The traffic control for the parents was rerouted from Alvarado to come up the back way to the north side of San Diego State up to the Viejas Arena, so we could completely bypass College and Upland Boulevard to Montezuma, which was a parking lot. It wasn't always a parking lot for everybody trying to leave. It was parking lot for our units to trying to get in. And we had officers that took 25 minutes just to lights and siren trying to get there. I mean, if you're trying to get out of the way of the police officer, you've got nowhere to go, then you're stuck too. And that we all get that. So those are the challenges we had for that particular fire. And then that incident going forward is the traffic control. Where some units in the meeting and the lights were put on flash because now we have someone with a gunshot victim. That happened. Okay. Eventually those placements were then replaced later once we had units free. But our main concern was not traffic control, it was trying to find a shooter and take care of San Diego State, along with the fires and the evacuations. Those are our two main priorities, traffic control.
Would closing the campus.
Very quick, thank you for that. Where's our principal and the teachers party? Hi, can we give, principal area, thank you. So I'll just share from my vantage point. The first stop was to Chief Logan on Montezuma to check in with him at where they were commanding the situation. From there, I went to SCSU and I watched them stay with every single child until every single child was picked up and maintain their calm. With the fire going on and an active shooting situation, right? So not creating panic with kids, not creating additional panic for the San Diego State students who were there. It was handled with as much love and care as I could possibly imagine that being handled with, and I want to appreciate that. What I also saw was an additional layer of complexity that wasn't mentioned here. 2 more police departments that were thrown in the mix. We had San Diego Unified Police and San Diego State Police, who also had to coordinate through all of this. So the layers of complexity and coordination that were required on every single level, I felt I have a different perspective on how hard these folks work and how many things need to go right in order to protect people. And so I think the question is asked, is it considered a success? And look, we're continuing to have conversations about why communication was a little bit choppy. I escorted some folks back to their home because they had a hard time getting back once the evacuation had been lifted and the communication hadn't gotten out to everyone. We can certainly find ways to point out opportunities to do better in the future. But there was a home loss, which is a tragedy. Nobody was injured and nobody died. And every student at that school went home sick. And so at a top level, high level priority perspective, I think it was a success in terms of evacuation. And I think that everyone up here deserves an incredible amount of appreciation. The faculty and staff at Hardy Elementary deserves an incredible amount of appreciation. And that does not mean that we won't aim to do better, but I don't think that should be lost. And again, what I got to witness in terms of that care for the students at Hardy, very, very inspiring and incredible thing. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, of course, we're going into Thanksgiving and so forth. We all have a lot to be grateful for. And how everybody worked together and rose to the occasion when we least expected it, and yet we might have known to prepare ourselves, and now we're going to work together to do just that. I have one last question I'd like to share. Is Jeff here with Canyon Islands? There he is, one of my new favorite colleagues. He has a question. San Diego Canyonlands is working on our environmental aspects, and one of the considerations is with that open space that has it's deemed a conservation area. There's a watershed in there and so forth. What might need to happen in terms of remediation and restoration? Here's his question for open space. Evidently, we need to learn to live with wildfire. How then can we channel cross-sector funding towards minimizing the highest risk invasive species while regenerating resilient native ecosystems? Yeah. We're going to team up. Anybody else want to get together on the environment?
We actually only paid the auditorium through 8, so we really have.
Let's wrap it up then, since we have that, and we'll have more time to go back out to the resources center. And I want to, of course, thank Fire Chief Logan and Chief Eddie and all the other fire department staff. Council President and his staff members for the 19th community. We have the San Diego Regional Foundation, San Diego Regional Foundation, which Fire Foundation, which has helped us to support this event tonight in our community. Also, I want to thank all of the co-sponsors, the community groups. We saw their logos, and also the volunteers and other community organizations and partners who work so incredibly well together that we could hold this evening meeting. So I'd like to say in the words of Renee, and thank the Boland family for their willingness to allow the fire department to share the case study of their home for our benefit. She said to me, the first thing she said to me was, I'm just glad this didn't happen to anybody else. And I want to do you proud, Renee. We're going to work together. And let's stay connected. We're going to have a meeting to help to provide you with information about the resources and the support and even the funding to help do great activities to prevent, wildfires from impacting negatively our families and our properties in our neighborhood. So let's work together. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.